This is Spessartite Garnet. The name comes from Spessart, an area in Bavaria in Germany where the gem material was first discovered in the 1800s. This color of Spessartite Garnet is sometimes called mandarin orange, sometimes it's called vitamin C, and sometimes it's called what I normally call it, Fanta Orange Spessartite Garnet. And it is the chemical manganese that gives Spessartite Garnet its orange color. Now, Fanta Orange Spessartite Garnet is a rare and valuable gemstone, and the price for Spessartite Garnet depends on the color saturation, the clarity, and the size. Clean stones are uncommon, and it's very common to have inclusions that are sugar-like, and they are acceptable. And cut gemstones over 5 carats are very rare. The good thing about Spessartite Garnet is it is not treated. It is completely natural. There have been attempts to treat Spessartite Garnet, including heating and irradiating, in attempts to try to improve the color and get that Fanta orange color. The treatment attempts were not successful in improving color, so they don't treat Spessartite Garnet. And if you hear the term spessartine, there's no need to be confused. Spessartite and spessartine are the same thing, but in the jewelry trade, we normally use the term Spessartite Garnet. And the final thing I'd say about Spessartite Garnet is that it has an exceptionally high refractive index, and that gives Spessartite Garnet a special brilliance. The refractive index of Spessartite Garnet is between 1.9795 and 1.815, and the refractive index of Spessartite Garnet is higher than ruby, sapphire, alexandrite, tourmalines, topaz, emerald, aquamarine, and quartzes, including amethyst and citrine. And basically, the refractive index is the ability of the gemstone to bend the light that enters into the top of the gemstone, and a high refractive index redirects more light back into your eyes than a lower refractive index, and that gives it this brilliance. So if I cut this gemstone correctly, it should really sparkle, and that will be due to the high refractive index. The hardness of Spessartite Garnet is 7 on the Mohs hardness scale. And here is a depiction of the Mohs hardness scale from the National Park Service website. I did a video on the Mohs hardness scale previously, so you can view that video and get an understanding of what we mean by hardness. So I won't cover that here. Now, a hardness of 7 is the same as the quartz family, which includes amethyst and citrine. Diamond has a hardness of 10. Corundum, which is ruby, sapphire, has a hardness of 9. Topaz has a hardness of 8. So this hardness of Spessartite Garnet of 7 makes it an excellent choice for all jewelry applications. And Spessartite Garnet has been found in many localities around the world. However, many of these finds have been played out, and currently the following are the main but not only sources of Spessartite Garnet. Tanzania, which is where my small parcel and this stone came from. Kenya, Nigeria, Namibia, Mozambique, Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, Brazil, and in the U.S., California. So now for a design to cut a round stone. I recently cut a design called Sunset Vista by Arya Akhavan, and I used a green zircon, and BOPIE liked the design. So I think I'll cut that same design, and now in a Fanta Orange color, and let BOPIE see the contrast between the colors and see if she really likes this design. Arya's design can be found on the website called the Gemology Project. Now, Arya said that he prefers to cut this stone in sunset tourmaline, but that the design works great in gemstones of any refractive index from topaz to rutile. So this design should work out fine for our Spessartite Garnet. I do one day want to cut this gemstone design in sunset tourmaline, at least at some point, just to see, so stay tuned. For our Spessartite Garnet, to mount it on the dopstick, I want to put a flat spot that's going to be the crown or upper half of the stone. So I take a a rough lap, but not too rough. This is a 320 grit lap, and I'm going to grind a flat spot on what will be the top of this stone. And being a rougher lap will help it adhere to the adhesive that I use to mount it to the dop. So you just need a good flow of water, and then with your hand just grind a flat spot. And that'll pretty much do it. So now I'm ready to mount the stone to the dop. Okay, for the bottom dop, as I mount my Spessartite onto my dop, the bottom dop I use a piece of modeling clay and one package of modeling clay or putty or whatever it is. It never dries out, and one package will last you forever. But on the bottom part, you want the rough side of the stone, which is not flat. You want to put that in the modeling clay, and that way, as you set the stone, it'll kind of form around the bottom part. And then you get a dop that's about as wide as the stone to help you center the stone. This is not the dop I'm going to use. It's just a dop I'm going to use to help center my Spessartite. So then you push that onto the stone, and you adjust the stone so that there's kind of centered. A smaller dop, it's hard to center, but with this dop being just about as big as the stone, it's fairly easy to center the stone and take into account where the stone goes inward and where it goes straight down, and kind of with experience you'll learn where to best put the stone so that it's centered on your dop. Then when you get it where you want it, go ahead and push it down, put some pressure on there and push it down into the modeling clay. That way the top part's flat, and you can push the modeling clay kind of around it a little bit. Make sure everything's where you want it. And then you just remove your temporary dop that you helped to center the stone and replace it with the dop you're going to use to cut the stone. Now, the way I use the dops that I'm going to use to cut the stone is, for me, I've learned it, I kind of figure out which size dop will work, and then what I do is I go one size smaller, because invariably there's an inclusion as you're cutting the stone, or you don't have enough rough left to cut the upper half, so you end up cutting it smaller than you had planned on, and all too often you end up cutting to the dop, and then you have to re-dop the whole thing in the middle of your work. So for me, for a new cutter, I'd say figure out where you think the right size dop is, what you think you need, and then go one size smaller. Okay, and now we're ready to put our adhesive onto the dop. So for the adhesive, I've had a lot of luck with this UV light activated super glue, Surehold by Helios. I like it because it doesn't set up like super glue right away. It sets up after you hit it with the UV light. So if you've still got a little time to adjust things. So then I just put a drop of the super glue onto the dop. Push it on down onto the stone. Maybe move the dop around a little bit to get the super glue to kind of go around on the dop. Make sure there's super glue on the dop, on the stone, and then hit it with the UV light, which takes about 2 seconds to cure the super glue, and you're ready to start cutting. More than enough time. And you can tell that it's set. So this stone's ready to cut right now. To cut the girdle, I set my mast at 90 degrees, 90 degree angle, and I am using my 320 grit topper, just kind of preform our girdle. Okay, so the girdle's preformed that quick, so now I'm ready to move on to my 600 grit topper and go over these first two lines of instructions with that. The third line of instruction, I'll wait a little till I have a little finer lap before I deal with that one, so I don't overcut it. So I just started cutting the P2 line of instruction, which brings this facet down to the point right there where it touches the meet point between those two girdle facets and the girdle line here. And the point is that you don't need to cut all the lines of instruction with all of the laps. So this is the third lap that I've used. It's my 12M. So I'm getting with, using finer and finer laps. So there's no need to go through all the lines of instruction. If I would have gone through this P2 line of instruction with one of my rougher laps, I probably would have overcut and wouldn't have been necessary. And the other thing to note is that on the first line of instruction, the P1, it calls to make a culet, a center point. And you can see we didn't make a center point. There's a little spot, so I didn't quite make a center point with that first line of instruction, but now with this P2 line of instruction, that's cutting out, taking away half of this flat spot on the top already, and there's still another line of instructions. So when I go through the P3, I will have a center point, but you don't need necessarily to make the center point with your first line of instruction. You can leave a little bit and get it later, and you don't need to make the center point with your rougher laps because you'll be going over it the same facets with finer laps and closing up that center point. My Spessartite Garnet polished right up with 60,000 grit diamond on a bat lap, so now I'll transfer the stone and cut the upper half. So I started preforming our Spessartite Garnet with my 320 grit topper, and then I went to the 600 grit topper. Now I'm ready to go over the stone with my 12M, but I only worked the first two lines of instruction, so I still have a lot of other facets that I haven't touched yet, and I'll get those with a more finer of a grit lap. I do have these inclusions in the Spessartite. Spessartite's rarely found internally flawless, but I would like to be able, if I'm lucky, to work through most of these inclusions, get them cut through. There still may be some internal fractures, but at least if I can get rid of those two big inclusions, maybe this one here, I think I'll be okay. We'll see if I'm able to work through those in cutting the stone. So the 12M cleaned up a lot of that those inclusions, so there's still a little bit left of the inclusions, and I'll work on those with my I'll go to the 8000 grit diamond on zinc lap and probably reduce the width of the girdle a little bit and see if I can clean up these inclusions right here. The inclusion's been pulled out of the stone, but it left a little indentation to where the rock used to be in that stone. So I should be able to clean it up. We'll see how it works with the 8000 grit diamond on zinc lap. I pre-polished the Spessartite with a 8000 grit diamond on a zinc lap, and I was lucky it cleaned up those major inclusions, those 3 or 4 black spots. Those are all gone now. There's still some inclusions in the stone, but it looks much better now. So now I'll polish it, and I'm going to use 60,000 grit diamond on a bat lap and see how that works. I finished polishing the upper half of our Spessartite with 60,000 grit diamond on a bat lap, and it polished right up. So now I'm going to cut the table and polish the table. Although with this checkerboard design, it really does look like you could skip the table and just call it done. I mean, it's got these little facets that all match up here, and this is where I'm going to cut the table. So instead of these 4 facets touching at the center point, there'll be a table right there. So, like I said, I think you could do it either way. I'm going to stick to the design and polish the table, and then I want to see how this design looks in Spessartite Garnet. I finished polishing the table of our Fanta Orange Spessartite Garnet, so now I'll be able to soak the stone on the dop in the acetone to remove the adhesive. Then we can weigh it, measure it, and send it off to BOPIE. Today, I cut a beautiful Fanta Orange colored Spessartite Garnet into a round design called Sunset Vista. The final gemstone really sparkles. It's very bright. And that's due to the very high refractive index of Spessartite Garnet. Now, Spessartite Garnet is rarely found internally clean, and I was very lucky to be able to cut out 3 or 4 black inclusions which were in the rough, which would have detracted from the beauty of this stone. As far as the design, Sunset Vista, I don't think any cutter would have difficulty cutting this design, and I would recommend you give this design a try. It cuts a beautiful gemstone. So please let me know in the comments what you think of my Fanta Orange Spessartite Garnet and of the design. And as always, happy faceting, everyone.